issue?
No, not anymore. I'm done. You're on who I am. Okay, so how long? 20 minutes? Okay. All right, so I'm here to talk about writing in the real world, right? Why do you need to write? What's the importance of writing? What is writing going to do for you? Like going beyond the 5-paragraph essay, going beyond what you learn in school. Because frankly, once you get out of school, no employer is ever going to ask you to write a 5-paragraph essay. No one's going to ever say to you, can you write a 5-paragraph essay about mice and men? Unless you are an English teacher, unless you go into literature. Then you do need to know how to write 20 pages and 100 pages and more about a book. But for the most of you, writing is going to get you a job. It's going to get you into college. It will maybe help you find a husband or a wife if you write a really good love letter. It will help you keep in touch with your friends. It will help you keep in touch with your family. It will help you communicate. So that's what I'm here to talk about, what writing is going to do for you in the real world. Part of the reason I'm here is because I'm a writer. Right? That's how I've been making my living most of my life. That's how I still am making my living now. I'm working for the Chronicle, for those of you who don't know. And I'm covering education for the Chronicle, so I write about education issues. I write about these things for a living now. But the real reason I think Misty has asked me to be here is because I am a believer in the written word. I believe in the power of the written word. I believe that it has the power to change lives. I believe it has the power to make us think, to make us grow, to help us become united as people. So that's one of the reasons I'm here. Okay? So I'm going to start out with a quote from Maya Angelou. And anybody who was in my class should remember her because I have her on my wall. Right? There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. We all have stories to tell. All writing is storytelling. That's what writing is. It's taking what's inside of you and expressing it. We all have stories to tell. You tell a story when you come home and your mother asks you how your day went and you said, oh man, I had a really hard day. Miss Rhor is such a horrible teacher. She makes us write so much. I don't know why she does this. You're telling a story, right? We all tell stories every day. This is a quote from Leonard Pitts, which some of you might have remembered too. We read this essay in class that he wrote about being plagiarized. I'm just going to read the beginning of it. I am a worshiper at the first church of the written word, a lover of language, a student of its rhythm, its music, its violence, and its power. That, to me, sums up the way I think about language. Maybe because I grew up speaking 2 languages, I grew up really appreciating the power of language. Think about when somebody says something to you, a word that's really hurtful, how much power that word has. Think about what it means to you when you get a note from somebody saying something really nice, the power those words have. That's the power of language. When you're writing your college essays to get into college, what you write will very well determine whether you get into school or not. I just did some stories. Actually, I have a story today about Texas A&M and how Texas A&M is trying to recruit more minorities, trying to go out and recruit especially more Latino and Black students. They, more than grades, more than SATs, more than GPAs, more than anything else, they look at your essays. They look to see what you've overcome in your life, how you've overcome it, and how you express yourself. If you want to get to the school of your choice, you need to know how to express yourself well. That's one of the power of writing. That's the power of the church of the written word. Whatever you write can grab someone's attention and make them look at you in a different way. This is my life right now, anyway. Writing. That's where I used to work at one point at the Philadelphia Inquirer. Writing. And that's, see my story there on the front page? Writing. Right, that's what I do every day now. Every day I have to write a research paper. That's what an article is. That's what a newspaper article is. I have to do a research paper every day. I go in, my editor says to me, I want you to write this, or I come up with an idea, and I have to do the research. I have to call people, do some research, look up facts, and then put it all together. It's a research paper every day. So, and what happens when my stories Sometimes I get really nasty emails, like I did for this story, right? I get people who will want to argue with me, who want to fight with me, who want to call me names. Or I get people who agree with me, who say it's the best thing I've ever read. Thank God for that you wrote it. But it inspires emotion in people. Again, writing inspires emotion in people. People connect with it on a really visceral, kind of gut level. This is a quote from the National Commission on Writing. If students are to learn, they must write. Writing has cognitive benefits. So it has been shown that when you write something, you learn it better. So let's say you're trying to memorize something about history. When you write it down, it stays in your mind more. When you write it down, it makes it your own. So there are benefits to just writing. Even if you're just copying something, there are benefits to it. It'll help you in your learning. Helps you get into college, as I already said. Essays are so important when you're applying for college. Or internships. A lot of you are going to be doing internships, looking for first jobs. The email you write when you say, I'm interested in this job, this is why you should hire me. Sometimes that makes the difference between getting a job and not getting it. A lot of the newspapers I've worked at, they look at two different things. They don't look at the resume so much. They'll look at it very quickly. They look at your cover letter, and they look, especially in newspapers, at what you've written. If your cover letter is really strong, and what you've written is strong, you'll get a call. The resume, not so much, because they can check on that. They can see that later. They want you to grab attention right away. So again, writing that letter is really important. These are just some quick facts. Over 90% of white-collar workers and 80% of blue-collar workers say writing skills are important to job success. Almost 70% of salaried employees in jobs such as finance, insurance, real estate, construction, and manufacturing use writing as part of their jobs. So even if you never become a professional writer, even if you think your job isn't going to involve writing, it will involve writing. I'm teaching right now a class at Lone Star College. It's a developmental writing class, so I teach writing. We had people come in from the health sciences section to talk about the need for writing. One of the things they said is when students apply for our courses, for our program, to get into pharmacy, or to get into nursing, or to get into healthcare, if they don't have good writing skills, they don't get into the program. So you would think, who needs to know how to write if I'm going to be a doctor? You know, doctors don't need to know how to write. You need to know how to write. You need to know how to write reports. You need to know how to write in order to get into the program and to stay in the program. Okay, that's somebody getting a job writing. How much will you write in college? 92 pages on average for first-year students. 146 pages on average for seniors. 114 pages for seniors in the physical sciences. So again, those are science. 172 pages for seniors studying the social sciences, psychology, sociology. That's a lot of writing. That's a lot of writing. That's the student being overcome by all that writing. Okay. Now those are all the reasons, the kind of factual, pragmatic, practical reasons to write. The real reason to write, and this is the only reason that matters to me, really. Why should you write? Because you should have something to say. Have something to say, and say it as clearly as you can. That's the only secret to good writing. Know what you want to say, and say it very clearly. That's the only secret. Every one of you, everyone in the world can be a good writer, as long as they listen to themselves and express themselves clearly. Close the door, write with no one looking over your shoulder. Don't try to figure out what other people want to hear from you. Figure out what you have to say. It's the one and only thing you have to offer. What you have to say is the most important thing you could offer to the world. Not just to your college that you want to apply to, not just to your employer, not just to your parents, to your boyfriend, your girlfriend, to the world. And that's just to make sure you're paying attention. Okay. I'm going to say, this is why I write. This girl is why I write. Her name was Melissa Flores. She was a 16-year-old girl who lived here in Houston. I never met her, never will meet her. She died when she was 16. She was killed when she was 16. The way I met her was through a press release from the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office. It was a press release that came across my desk when I was working at the AP. And the press release was written in very simple, clinical language, nothing exciting about it, nothing emotional about it. It just described an unidentified body that was in the morgue, and it described her as a young girl with braces. And it even said the decedent, which is a technical word, has braces. When I read that press release that came over with 100 other press releases that I would get every day in the office, I looked at that and I knew there was a story to tell. I knew as a person, as a journalist, I wanted to tell that girl's story. This was my lead on the story. The girl was small, about 5'3", and weighing just 100 pounds. Her hair was long and lustrous. Her eyes were dark and almond-shaped. She wore blue shorts, a pink hooded t-shirt adorned with pictures of monkeys, and clear plastic sandals. Black and green plastic bracelets were coiled around her thin wrists. These were all things that were described in the press release. When I saw that description of the black and green bracelets, I thought, this girl, she was a young girl. She was a teenager, your age. She had braces, which meant at some point somebody loved her. Somebody took care of her. She wasn't homeless. She wasn't somebody no one cared about. I did a story about the search to find her identity. The police officer who was trying to find out who this girl was. He eventually tracked down her name, tracked down her killer, found her killer. And it turned out she had been a foster kid. She ran away from her foster home, ended up on the streets, ended up getting involved with the wrong guy, who ended up getting her killed. And then she was buried. At the end of the story, I wrote that she, even after all this trying to find her name, she was buried in a grave with no headstone because they didn't have the money because she was in the foster system. So I wrote the story and it ended with no headstone in her grave. That story went out from the Associated Press. It went out to newspapers around the country. So that ran all over the country. People called in from all over the country wanting to offer money to buy her a headstone. They had tons of people donating money, people who had never met her, who had no idea who this girl was, who lived in Oregon and Washington. Some people from out of the country donated money to buy her a headstone. Again, to me, that's the power. It's not the power necessarily of my words. It's the power of words. It's the power of words to move people to action. They got so much money, they were able not only to buy her a headstone, but to give money to her younger sister, that her sister could put aside for money to go to school. So that's how words can touch people in that sense. So, writing is taking a stand. Quote from Abraham Lincoln, which I love. I've never heard this quote before. I was doing research for this. Whenever I hear anyone arguing for slavery, I feel a strong impulse to see it tried on me personally. That's a great quote. That's something that can move people, right?